everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Sarah, and my Instagram finally is getting what they want. I did put a poll on my Instagram, and a lot of people really want this pie recipe, and I'm surprised because this pie recipe is actually not my favorite. The only reason why I'm showing is because my sister and my dad both really like this pie, and I didn't want to forget how I made it. So yeah, if you want the specifics of the recipe, I will make sure to put the link to the recipe down below. But this video is mostly for you to see how to actually make it, because I found a lot of parts of this is not described in a recipe, and it can get really difficult and frustrating if you don't know exactly what you're looking for, especially when making something so tedious and specific as a pie. So full transparency, I actually did have this video completely edited, filmed, the whole 9 yards. Just never posted it because I wasn't happy with it. I didn't like the way I did my voiceover. I didn't like the intro and the outro of the video. So I never posted it. So it was probably a good thing that I didn't do it. And I was feeling like a little bit of a creative slump at that point. I think because I was just pushing myself to make the video because I promised to make pies. But I was just overwhelmed, especially since it was holiday season, and yeah, it was just a lot. But enough with the excuses. We're doing the video now. So we will be making apple pie. Not my favorite apple pie. I prefer my filling to be cooked on the stove. So if you are good with no stove cooking for this one, this is the pie recipe for you. Though I will say this apple pie is not as sweet as like a Marie Callender's pie. So if you're going to compare it to that, I would say don't, because it's not going to be like that in any sense. So yeah. Oh, before we get started, I should say this is not a two crust pie. If you don't know what a two crust pie is, it's when there's a crust at the bottom and a crust on the top. This is a Dutch apple pie, and so it has a crust at the bottom and a crumble. Yeah, let's get into making this pie. We're starting with the pie crust. You will need flour, salt, very cold unsalted butter, and very cold water. So first you're going to be cutting up your very cold butter, and when I say very cold, it needs to be like fresh out the fridge cold. You're going to cut it up into really small pieces with a knife, or you can use a pastry cutter. I don't have one, so I used the knife and I just cut it into as small pieces as I could. Just make sure that you do it quickly so that the butter stays very cold. In a medium-sized bowl, you're going to put your flour and salt in, and then add half of the butter that you just cut up, and then you're going to mix it with your hands. You're going to want to do this so that you can start to squish the butter between your fingers a little bit to start breaking it down. Once that half of the butter is coated in the mixture, you're going to add the other half and then continue squishing the butter with your fingers. It will then make this little pea size, like tiny pea size little clumps, and like almost like a crumble. You'll see in the video what that looks like. Once you get that consistency, you are going to add a tablespoon of water. The recipe that I had, I don't know if I'll find it, but the recipe that I had, it asked for 2 tablespoons of water. However, I don't suggest that because I did have to make 3 batches of this pie crust, because the first one I did, I put too much water in and the dough became wet, and you do not want it to be wet. So I just started with 1 tablespoon this time, and it started to come together and it was good. If you don't think that's enough water, I'm pretty sure it will be enough water. You don't want wet dough. You don't want wet dough. So just keep combining it together and it will slowly turn into a little dough ball. We're going to wrap it up and put it in the fridge to set. Next, we're going to be making the apple filling. You will need peeled, cored, sliced Fuji apples, sugar, flour, ground cinnamon, and a lemon. In a large bowl, you're going to combine all of the ingredients together. I squeezed a fresh lemon into the bowl, but you don't have to use a fresh lemon if you don't have it. If you have like a bottle of lemon juice, you can use that instead. Just whatever you have. Once you got everything into the bowl, the apples, the flour, the sugar, the lemon, the cinnamon, everything, you're going to mix it all together until all of the apples are fully coated in the mixture. Now, my one tip for you is to continuously mix the apples, even when you set it aside to do everything else you have to do. Keep stirring the bowl because that will help the apples release more juice, and that will help make it more sticky and more of like a glaze kind of an apple filling, which I like. So make sure to continuously stir the bowl. Next up is the crumble topping. You will need unsalted butter, sugar, and brown sugar. So you're going to cut up the butter like we did for the crust into small little pieces, either with a knife or with a pastry cutter. Then in a medium-sized bowl, you're going to mix everything together, and this time you're going to be using your hands again. And you're going to be squishing the butter with the sugar and everything until you get a crumble. If you're not sure what that consistency is, you will see it in the video. It almost forms like a giant clump, and you'll kind of break it off with your fingers when you put it on top of the pie. Okay, now we're ready to put everything together to finally make a pie. First, you're going to be rolling out your pie crust, and I rolled out in flour, and I used a lot of flour because for some reason this dough really liked to stick to the table. I think the hardest part here is trying to get it from the table into the pie dish. So I use a 9-inch pie pan. That's probably the best size to use, so I highly suggest using that. I tried the first time using the roller to roll the dough on there, but it ended up just stretching it out and making it really thin at the bottom, so I don't suggest that. What worked really well was just folding the dough into thirds and then lifting it up really slowly into the pan and then opening it back up. Once you get the dough into the pan, you're going to pat with your hands all the edges and everything into the pan so that there's no spaces, and then it's okay if your dough rips a little bit in the middle or on the sides. Anywhere there's a hole, you can use the scraps from the top section and just patch it up, or you can kind of just squish it together if it's close enough. Yeah, that part was probably the hardest for me. Once you got your pie crust in the pan, you're going to add the apple filling into the pan, and I made it a mound in the middle, so it was kind of like high in the middle and low on the sides, because the apples will, once they're cooked, they will start to slide out to the outside, so it's good to kind of give it some space to slide and let everything fall naturally. Finally, we're going to be adding the topping. You're going to crumble all of your big crumble top on top and make sure it's as even as possible. You don't want to have big holes because you don't want to be that person who serves himself a piece without crumbly top. And then once you get that all evenly on there, you're going to take a tablespoon of regular sugar and sprinkle it all over the top, and this will give it a really sweet crust. Pop that in the oven for 45-55 minutes, or you can check if the apples are soft by sticking a knife or a fork right into the pie to see the consistency of the apples. You made a pie! Great, you made it to the end of the video. I think one last tip for you. I had my mom cut these apples for me because I am not skilled in slicing these apples as thin as they need to be. The thinner for this recipe, the better, just because you're not cooking them on the stove. They will not get as soft. So just keep that in mind if you're going to try this recipe out. But anyways, thank you so much for watching. If you do try this recipe out, let me know. You can let me know in the comments down below, or let me know on Instagram and follow there if you want say in what kind of videos we see next. The next video, unfortunately, will not be the pumpkin pie recipe. I kind of want to give us some time between this one and the next one. So the next one will be the cooking video I had originally planned for this week, but that's fine. If you guys want to see the pie recipe, that's fine. Yeah, so thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next week. Bye!